And welcome back to AFA Today on this Tuesday. Fred Jackson sitting in for Kevin McCullough today. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. 888-589-8840. I'd love to hear your reaction to the fact that it is Election Day. What do you think is going to happen, in particular in Virginia, where that race pits a high-profile Terry McAuliffe, Democrat, used to work for the Clinton administration, you may remember, former chair of the Democratic National Committee, up against Ken Cuccinelli, I tell you what, he's a Tea Party favorite, yes, but the McAuliffe forces have outspent him something wicked. The ad campaign has been nasty in Virginia, and Bill Clinton has been there, of course. McAuliffe worked with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton has been back in Virginia several times. Hillary Clinton has been there. President Barack Obama campaigned for McAuliffe just once, though, on Sunday night, which is very interesting because there is concern in the McAuliffe camp that all the controversy involving Obamacare would affect McAuliffe's chances. We will wait and see on that. And then, of course, ENDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. On a test vote last night, it passed by a very, significant margin, 61 to 34, I think was the final count. The number of senators did not vote, of course. But 7 Republicans joined the Democrats in that. And if you're interested to see where your Republican senator came down on that vote, you can go to onenewsnow.com, go to the story, and we provide you a link so you can find out where your senator voted on this Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which has been fought by conservatives for years and years and years. And here is why. It gives homosexuals much more power in the workplace. And we know how the courts define discrimination. We've seen it over and over again. Basically what happens, an employee who might criticize the homosexual lifestyle finds himself in trouble. We are seeing that in our military. We see it various other federal government departments. We see it, there are lawsuits galore out there that are filed against Christians for simply saying that they want to run their businesses according to Christian principles. And this law would apply. Now, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, there are exemptions for so-called religious institutes, but that doesn't apply to a Christian-run business, folks, and that is the big concern. 888-589-8840, the number to call. We'd love to hear from you this morning and get your views on this. Now, you just heard Kirby Anderson talking about Obamacare and what is happening. I'm sure you have been following the news, folks, of many people. Millions of Americans are getting cancellation notices. And it goes against, of course, what the president said over the last 3 years. He said, if you have your doctors that you like them, you get to keep them. He said, if you have an insurance policy that you like, that fits you, you're happy with it, you get to keep it. Of course, what we have learned over the last few weeks, that is simply not true. People who wanted to keep their insurance are getting cancellation notices. We're not talking just a few people. As I say, millions of Americans are getting these cancellation notices. Maybe you're one of them. Love to hear from you today. But listen to this. You've heard the clips of the president saying just what I said, that if you like your insurance policy, you can keep it. Well, of course, he's gotten in trouble with that because that is not the case. So last night, there was a gathering at the White House, and here's how he changed his tune. Here's what he said. Now, if you had one of these plans before the Affordable Care Act came into law and you really liked that plan, what we said was you can keep it if it hasn't changed since the law passed. But everybody knows for the last 3 years, that's not what he said. He did not add these caveats. It just did not happen, folks. So the president now trying to change his tune that you didn't misunderstand. Also, what he has been trying to do is blame the insurance companies. He said they're the ones that are changing the plans. Well, folks, we all know they are changing the plans because what the president and his people didn't tell us, that in that, 2,000-page law, the Affordable Care Act, which became law, they started to add some regulations that said if there were any changes in your existing policy, the so-called grandfathering clause, the one that the president said you get to keep your insurance, that canceled that grandfathering clause, all right, so that you have to go out and find new insurance. And the new policies, according to the law that the insurance companies have to offer, must comply with Obamacare. So they're writing to their customers, these insurance companies, not because they want to, it's because they have to, according to the law, to tell you that your existing policy has been canceled and that now that you have to, if you want health insurance, if you're going to buy health insurance, you're going to have to go to the exchanges or buy these new pricier premiums that, and people are, you talk about sticker shock. There have been more testimonies. I was listening to one gentleman from California this morning. It was absolutely amazing. He is facing a huge increase in his premiums, an absolutely huge increase in his premiums for he and his family. And he said, he believed the president. He said, when the president told me if I liked my policy, I would get to keep it, he believed him. He believed the president. But now he's finding out that is simply not the case. And that story is being repeated over and over and over again. 888-589-8840, the number to call. Now, another development that we are seeing, and the Wall Street Journal has written about this in the last 24 hours. This is kind of an update, because one of the other aspects of this story, of course, is that the White House has been very reluctant to tell the American public at this point just how many people are signing up and who is signing up. But slowly, the information is getting out through various state agencies that are investigating this. Now listen to this. The headline on this Wall Street Journal story is this: Young avoid new health plans. And here's what the story says. Let me just read you a few lines so you get the sense of this. Insurers say the early buyers of health coverage on the nation's troubled new websites are older than expected so far, raising early concerns about the economics of the insurance marketplaces. Now, what are they talking about here? Well, here was the assumption when Obamacare was put into place, is that they knew that these new policies that older people would be getting, people with existing conditions. Remember, one of the portions of Obamacare is that an insurance company cannot deny you coverage based on pre-existing conditions. The assumption was, by making it a law that you have to have insurance, that young people would climb into this system who are healthy. They would buy the insurance, but it wouldn't cost the insurance companies anything because they wouldn't be making any claims because young people, for the most part, are healthy. So they would be pouring money into the system to help offset the cost of older people buying the insurance or people with pre-existing conditions. That's not happening, folks. What's happening is that people who are signing up are these older people with, I'm sure some of them with pre-existing conditions. In fact, let's give you a few examples. The average enrollee age at Priority Health, a Michigan insurer, has ticked up to age 51 for newcomers from about 41 years old for plans offered for the current year, said Joan Bunden, Chief Marketing Officer. Arise Health Plan, Wisconsin's largest nonprofit insurer, said more than half its 150, that's all they've had so far, 150 signees are over 50, a higher proportion than expected, while declining to be specific on its target age. In states, the story says from the Wall Street Journal, in states that are running their own marketplaces and have seen smoother rollouts, officials are now also reporting a similar phenomenon, suggesting the economics of the law play a role too. In Connecticut and Kentucky, which have enrolled more than 4,000 people each in private health plans so far, the largest segments of enrollees in new commercial health law plans are over age 55, much older than industry actuaries say they had anticipated. Each state ultimately expects to register several 100,000 people in their exchanges. Are you catching the trend here, folks? What's happening? The trend is basically this, is that young people are saying, In fact, a lot of young people, and this was predicted, they will take the fine, which starts at $95 a year, rather than sign up for health insurance, which means the insurance companies are going to be in the red deeply on these plans. And a lot of people are speculating this is what this administration wanted all the time. They want insurance companies out of the healthcare business so that the healthcare insurance business is completely controlled by the federal government. It's working out just the way it was predicted. Wow. 888-589-8840. Tell me, I would be interested in hearing from you. Were you fooled by this at all? When this was first talked about, a lot of people said, there were unfair aspects of the current way that health insurance is done in this country. And even Republicans, you may remember, even when George Bush was in office, a lot of people talked about health care reform. And the thing that was talked about the most was, let's start with tort reform. In other words, that there puts a cap on the court awards to people who may sue a hospital or a doctor, whatever the case may be, because those health insurance costs, those premiums that doctors' offices have been paying, some of them up to, for a general practitioner, $250,000 a year. And of course, they have to pass those expenses along to their patients. So a lot of people in this country, Republicans and Democrats, favor health care reform. But this system and this story that we just have been talking about for the Wall Street Journal proves that the assumptions that were made by the Obama administration and the Democrats, and I'm being kind here, the assumptions, maybe this was the design all the way along, as we talked about, that what's going to happen is that only older people, people with pre-existing conditions, are going to sign up. The young people who are going to pay the bills, no, they're not going to sign up. All right, let's go to our phones, and we'll go to William in Alabama. Welcome to the program, sir.
Hi, how are you?
We're doing well. How about you?
Oh, pretty good.
Okay.
Y'all are always emphasizing about the young people to get in the system, and they're going to pay for the older people.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see more emphasis put on us older people. Our premiums are going up so much, we're taking a lot of the burden of paying. We're paying more for ourselves, too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what? Don't forget Alabama. 80 to 82% average increase.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, mine went from $293 a month
mm-hmm.
to $431 a month
mm-hmm.
for a less comparable plan. I'm $12,000 out of pocket, half of my income.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's going to take half of my income if I keep my insurance.
I know. William, your story is being repeated over and over and over again. The same kind of thing. Those, by law, we have to sign up or take the fine. So people, a lot of young people, some young people have the option, okay, I'll just pay the fine. But there are families like us that you have to have insurance. And they're running into the same problem, William, that you're talking about. All right, I've got to have insurance. I've got to find some protection for my family. But they're going to these exchanges and they're finding out that, I can get insurance, but my premiums, like William was talking about, have shot up incredibly, not to mention my copays. All right? And as William is saying, I mean, he's what? He said $12,000 out of pocket. That's what he's talking about there. Folks, William, this is not exaggerating. This is not political rhetoric anymore. This is happening to people. People getting, millions of Americans getting cancellation notices. Americans who are buying insurance are finding out the sticker shock, that it has shot up 50, 60, 70% higher for their premiums and then their copays. As I say, this is not political rhetoric anymore, folks. This is not, you're a conservative and you're complaining about things. No, this is happening to folks. And it's amazing. We have been dealing with this story, folks, since President Barack Obama was elected. All right? You remember, in 2008, the Democrats took control of the White House, the Senate, and the House. And they used that supermajority to bring about what we now call Obamacare. And while it was, and I use the word debated, not really, because they had that political control, it was discussed, there were warnings from many conservatives that what you're being sold is socialized medicine, that it doesn't work, that it's very, very expensive. And when the American people really found out the details, and they're just finding it out, remember that. Now, the Obama administration put out some goodies there first. Remember, if you have kids up to age 26, they can stay on your policy. Well, they reeled that out last year. But now we're down to late 2013, 2014. We're headed towards that. This is when the muscle, this is when the hammer of Obamacare really kicks in. And I'll tell you what, there are a whole lot of people like William in Alabama, and we're interested in your story. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. We got to take a break here, but we're going to go back to our phones, to Bob in North Carolina, Teresa in Alabama. You just stay where you are. We're going to come back to you in just a few moments. Want to hear your experience. Our audience wants to hear your experience. Like I say, this is not political rhetoric. This is not right-left stuff, folks. This is happening to real people out there. And Americans are finding out they were lied to by this president. They were misled by Democrats who passed this through. Nancy Pelosi saying you got to pass it to find out what's in it. Well, people are finding out. Even Democrats, especially those Democrats that need to be or want to be reelected next year, they're even trying to squeal away from it. All right, got to take the break. We'll be right back. You're listening to AFA Report. Fred Jackson sitting in for Kevin McCullough.
With today's Faith to Action commentary,